The colony was more than just a settlement. It was a statement that humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows of one solar system. Earth's children were spreading across the galaxy, and they carried with them the warrior spirit that had defeated the Council's finest fleet. Commander Steve Johnson led the final assault on the Galactic Council's military headquarters. The fortress that had coordinated the conquest of hundreds of worlds found itself under attack by enemies who had learned all its weaknesses from captured databases. "All units, this is Liberty's Edge," Steve announced, as his assault carriers disgorged thousands of fighters. "The symbol of galactic oppression ends today. No mercy for those who showed none to others." The battle was brief, but decisive. Human weapons tore through defenses that had protected the Council's power for centuries. The fortress that had seemed invincible crumbled under assault from enemies who fought with technology the aliens couldn't comprehend. As the last Council strongholds fell, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council was a sight that took breath away from anyone who saw it for the first time. The massive dome stretched high above, showing real-time images of all the member worlds spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Hundreds of different alien species sat in curved rows, each group representing their home planets and star systems. Commander Zekthon of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center of the hall. His dark green scales caught the light as he spoke. To the Council. His voice was strong and confident, like someone who had never been wrong about anything. "Honored Council members," he began, "I come before you today to report a security incident at our outer borders. A primitive species from an unknown world attempted to spy on our military operations." In the front row, Counselor Thane of the Eldari people listened carefully. Thane was very old, even by Eldari standards. His people lived for thousands of years, and Thane had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. His white hair fell down his back like a waterfall, and his deep blue eyes had seen more than most beings could imagine. Behind Zekthon, a holographic display showed images of the human ship. The New Horizons looked small and weak compared to the mighty Zephyrian vessels around it. "As you can see," Zekthon continued, "these creatures call themselves humans. They come from a world they name Earth. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their ship barely functions, and their weapons are nothing more than toys." In the middle section, the Quillic trade representatives whispered among themselves. The Quillic looked like tall, thin insects with 4 arms and large compound eyes. They cared more about profit than politics, but they always listened when territory was discussed. "What threat could such a primitive species pose?" asked Counselor Vexney of the Quillic. "Why bring this matter before the full council?" Zekthon's yellow eyes glowed brighter. "Because these humans claim to be explorers, but they were clearly gathering intelligence on our defenses. When we tried to question them, they fled like cowards. This shows they had something to hide." High above in the observation section, the Vorman delegates took detailed notes. The Vormans were known throughout the galaxy for their incredible intelligence. They had large heads with no hair, and their skin was pale blue. They spoke very little. But when they did, others listened. "Did you attempt peaceful contact before taking military action?" asked Counselor Yithra of the Vormans. Zekthon made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful contact with primitives is not our way. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 47 worlds. We did not become strong by being soft with inferior species." Old Thane stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried throughout the great hall. "In my long life, I have seen many species that seemed weak become very dangerous when threatened. It is not wise to assume that small size means small threat. With respect, Counselor Thane, Zekthon said, though his tone showed no respect at all. The Eldari have been peaceful for so long that you have forgotten what real strength looks like. These humans barely have the technology to leave their own star system. They are no threat to anyone. Thane's blue eyes seemed to look right through the Zephyrian commander. I have lived through the rise of the Krex Horde, the fall of the Golden Empire, and the plague wars that killed billions. Each time, someone said the new threat was too small to matter. Each time, they were wrong. The Eldari speak of ancient history, said Counselor Zeknal of the Hegemony, a group of militaristic worlds that often agreed with the Zephyrians. We live in modern times. Primitive species cannot threaten advanced civilizations anymore. The debate continued for hours. Most of the council members had never heard of humans before today. To them, it seemed like a simple border incident. The Zephyrians were known for being aggressive, but they were also powerful allies. Many council members did not want to make enemies of them over some unknown primitive species. Counselor Vexney of the Quilek stood up. Has anyone tried to contact these humans directly? Perhaps we could establish trade relations if they have anything of value. What could primitives possibly have that we would want? Laughed Counselor Drakmore of the Iron Worlds. Let the Zephyrians handle this as they see fit. But Thane was not ready to give up. I request that we send a peaceful mission to this Earth. World, let us learn about these humans before we make any decisions about their fate. Zekthan's scales seemed to darken with anger. That is unnecessary. The Zephyrian Empire claims the space around Earth as our rightful territory. These humans are now our responsibility to deal with. By what right do you claim their space? Asked a delegate from the neutral worlds. By the right of superior strength, Zekthon replied. It is the oldest law in the galaxy. The strong rule, and the weak obey or die. The Council voted on Thane's proposal to send a peaceful mission to Earth. The result was not close. Only 12 Council members voted in favor, while over 200 voted against it. The galaxy had spoken. Humanity was on its own. As the session ended, Zekthon felt very pleased with himself. He had convinced the Council that humans were nothing to worry about. Now he could deal with Earth without interference from other species. But as the delegates left the Great Hall, old Thane approached the Zephyrian commander. You are making a mistake, he said quietly. The only mistake, Zekthon replied, would be to let these humans spread their primitive ideas to other worlds. The galaxy is better off without them. Thane shook his head sadly. I have seen this pattern before. A proud species finds others they think are weak. They attack without understanding what they are truly facing. Sometimes the attacks succeed quickly, and everyone forgets about it. But sometimes what, old one? Sometimes the weak species turns out to be something entirely different. Something that looks small but hides great strength. Something that seems peaceful, but can become more dangerous than anyone imagined. Zekthon walked away without answering. He had more important things to do than listen to the fears of an ancient alien who had grown too old to understand how the modern galaxy worked. In his private chambers, Thane sat alone and worried. He had tried to warn them, but they would not listen. The young species always thought they knew everything. They never learned from the mistakes of others until it was too late. Thane opened his personal files and began to write a message to his homeworld. If the Galactic Council would not prepare for what might come next, at least the Eldari would be ready. He had a feeling that the name human would become very well known throughout the galaxy, and not in the way the Zephyrians expected. Far away, Commander Zekthon prepared his fleet for a simple extermination mission. He expected to be back within a few months, with one less primitive species to worry about. He had no idea that he was about to start a war that would change the galaxy forever. The emergency sirens wailed across Washington, D.C. as President Helen Brooks rushed through the underground tunnels beneath the White House. Her security team moved quickly around her, their faces grim and serious. The message from the New Horizons had arrived just 2 hours ago, and already the world was changing. In the deep bunker known as Situation Room Alpha, the most powerful people on Earth were gathering. General Chris Taylor, head of Earth Defense Forces, stood studying holographic displays of the damaged human ship. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with cold anger. Admiral Kate Sullivan paced near the wall screens, her naval uniform crisp, despite being called from sleep at 3 in the morning. President Brooks entered the room and immediately took charge. "Give me the full report. How bad is it?" Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the main screen via video link from the New Horizons. His face was bruised, and a bandage covered a cut on his forehead. Behind him, his crew worked frantically to keep their damaged ship running. "Madam President," Jake began, "we made contact with an alien species called the Zephyrian Empire. They attacked us without warning when we tried to communicate peacefully. They made it clear that they consider humans to be primitive and believe we have no right to exist in space." "What are their capabilities?" General Taylor asked, stepping forward. "Their ships are faster and more powerful than ours, sir. Their weapons cut through our shields like paper. But we did manage to collect some data during the encounter." Jake paused and looked directly at the camera. "Madam President, they know where Earth is, and from what they said, they're coming." The room fell silent for a moment. Then President Brooks spoke, her voice steady and strong. "How long do we have?" "Unknown, ma'am. But based on their technology, they could be here within weeks or months." "Admiral," Sullivan stopped pacing. "Jake, did you notice anything else? Anything that might help us?" Jake thought for a moment. "Yes, actually. During their scans of our ship, I felt strange. Like someone was trying to read my thoughts but couldn't quite do it. Amy felt it too. It was like having someone knock on a door that wouldn't open." Dr. Marcus Kim, who had been quietly taking notes in the corner, suddenly looked up. Marcus was the head of Earth's Advanced Technology Division, a brilliant scientist who had helped design the New Horizons. "Can you describe this feeling more?" "It was like pressure in my head," Jake replied, "but it didn't hurt. It just felt like something was pushing against a wall that wouldn't move." Marcus turned to President Brooks with excitement in his eyes. "Madam President, this could be very important. Many alien species might use telepathic abilities to communicate and control others. If humans are naturally resistant to these abilities, that could level the playing field." General Taylor finished, understanding immediately. President Brooks stood up. "Dr. Kim, I'm putting you in charge of a new project. Codename Ironclad. I want you to study every piece of alien technology we can recover from the New Horizons. I want our weapons, our ships, and our defenses improved as quickly as possible." "Yes, ma'am. But I'll need resources. A lot of them. You'll have whatever you need. Money is no object. This is about survival now." Admiral Sullivan approached the table. "Madam President, we need to consider evacuation plans. If their ships are as powerful as Captain Morrison reports, Earth's current defenses won't stop them." "No," President Brooks said firmly. "We're not running away from our home, but we are going to get smart about this." She turned to address the entire room. As of this moment, Earth is on total war footing. Every factory, every laboratory, every resource will be focused on one goal, making sure humanity survives what's coming. Over the following weeks, Earth transformed at a speed that amazed even its own people. Dr. Marcus Kim worked day and night with a team of the world's best scientists. They took apart every piece of alien technology they could find on the damaged New Horizons. The alien metal was incredibly strong, but surprisingly simple to reproduce once they understood its structure. The strange energy weapons used by the Zephyrians worked on principles that human science had only theorized about, but humans had always been good at learning from their enemies. Within a month, the first human-built energy weapons were being tested in secret facilities around the world. General Taylor coordinated the largest military buildup in human history. Factories that used to make cars and computers now produced weapons and armor. Space stations that had been built for research became fortress platforms armed with the new energy weapons. But the most important discovery came from studying human volunteers. Dr. Amy Stone, who had experienced the alien mental probing firsthand, worked with psychologists and neuroscientists to understand humanity's natural defenses. "It's remarkable," Dr. Stone explained to President Brooks during a briefing. "Human brains seem to have natural barriers that most alien species lack. We think it's because of how we evolved. Humans have always been suspicious of strangers and resistant to outside influence. What we call stubbornness might actually be our greatest weapon." President Brooks smiled grimly. "So you're telling me that being hard-headed is going to save humanity?" "In a way, yes, ma'am. The Zephyrians and probably most other alien species are used to using mental influence to control their enemies. They can plant thoughts, cause fear, or even take direct control of other beings' minds. But humans seem to naturally resist these abilities." Admiral Sullivan had been listening carefully. "What about their other advantages? Speed, firepower, numbers?" Dr. Kim answered this time. "We're working on that. The alien faster-than-light technology is actually simpler than our old theories suggested. We should have our own improved version within 3 months. As for firepower, we're reverse engineering their weapons and adding our own improvements." "What kind of improvements?" General Taylor asked. Marcus grinned, and for the first time in weeks, he looked truly happy. "Humans have always been good at making things explode, General. We're just applying that talent to alien technology." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew had become celebrities and heroes around the world. But Jake felt no joy in his fame. Every day that passed was another day closer to the alien invasion. He spent his time working with Earth's military planners, sharing every detail he could remember about the Zephyrian ships and tactics. "They're arrogant," he told a room full of generals and admirals. "They think they're so much better than everyone else that they don't expect real resistance. That might be something we can use against them." As Earth prepared for war, something else was happening that no one expected. Humans were volunteering for dangerous missions in numbers that amazed their leaders. Young people lined up to join the new Space Defense Corps. Scientists worked 18-hour days without being asked. Factory workers stayed late to build more weapons. President Brooks watched reports of this massive volunteer effort and felt something she hadn't expected: hope. "Maybe the aliens picked the wrong species to threaten," she said to her advisors. Admiral Sullivan nodded. "Humans have always been at their best when things look worst. We just need to make sure we're ready when they arrive." 3 months after, the New Horizons limped home with news of humanity's first contact. Earth was a very different world. Hidden bases dotted the solar system. New ships built with hybrid human-alien technology waited in secret locations. Most importantly, humanity had discovered that they possessed natural defenses that their enemies had never encountered before. The Zephyrians expected to find a primitive world full of helpless creatures. Instead, they were about to discover that humans had spent their entire history learning how to fight and survive against impossible odds. And now, for the first time, they had alien technology to help them do it. Commander Zekthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Around him, 50 of the Zephyrian Empire's finest warships spread out in perfect formation. Each ship was a deadly work of art, built for conquest and designed to strike fear into the hearts of primitive species. "Begin scanning for the human home world," Zekthon ordered his crew. "This should be over quickly." But as the scans came back, confusion spread across the bridge. The third planet from the star should have been teeming with human cities and ships. Instead, the sensors showed something impossible. "Commander," his second officer reported, voice uncertain, "we're not detecting any major population centers on Earth. The planet appears to be mostly empty." Zekthon's yellow eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, empty? There should be billions of these creatures down there." "Sir, we're only reading scattered settlements and what appears to be automated systems, but there are strange energy signatures throughout the system, and we're detecting some kind of transmission." "Put it on the main screen." The bridge filled with the image of a human woman in military uniform. Captain Elena Vasquez looked directly at the camera with cold, dark eyes. Behind her, other humans worked at control stations that looked far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen from the primitive ship months ago. "Welcome to human space," Elena said, her voice calm and steady. "You are Commander Zekthon of the Zephyrian Empire. We know who you are and why you're here. This message is being broadcast from one of many hidden locations throughout our system." Zekthon felt a chill run through his scales. These humans knew he was coming. Somehow, they had prepared. Elena continued speaking. "You came here expecting to find helpless primitives. Instead, you found humans who have had months to prepare for your arrival. You made a mistake when you let Captain Morrison escape. You showed us what we were facing, and you gave us time to get ready." "Sir," the weapons officer called out, "we're detecting multiple ships throughout the system. They're much smaller than ours, but there are dozens of them." On the screen, Elena smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "You're probably wondering where all the humans went. We learned something important from studying your attack on the New Horizons. You fight with honor codes and formation tactics. You announce your attacks and expect your enemies to face you directly." Her smile grew colder. "Humans don't fight that way." Suddenly, alarms began screaming throughout the Crimson Talon. "Multiple contacts!" the sensor officer shouted. "They're coming from everywhere!" Small human ships appeared from behind asteroids, from the shadows of planets, and from hiding spots that the Zephyrians had never thought to check. These ships were fast and sleek, built with a combination of human engineering and stolen alien technology. "All ships, defensive formation," Zekthon commanded. But the human ships didn't attack the way he expected. Instead of charging at his fleet, they scattered in all directions, forcing his ships to split up to chase them. Elena's transmission continued. "The first thing you need to understand about humans is that we don't care about fighting fair. We care about winning. The first human ship that the Zephyrians caught was piloted by Lieutenant Dan Foster. As the alien weapons charged up to destroy his small vessel, Dan did something no Zephyrian warrior would ever do. He aimed his ship directly at the alien vessel and activated his ship's self-destruct system. The explosion tore through the Zephyrian ship's shields and hull. The massive alien warship, damaged and venting atmosphere, fell behind the rest of the fleet. What kind of species destroys their own ships? Zekthan's weapons officer asked in shock. The kind that wants to survive, Zekthan replied grimly. He was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. More human ships appeared, attacking the Zephyrian fleet from unexpected angles. They didn't try to fight fair battles. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly and then disappearing before the aliens could respond effectively. Captain Elena Vasquez led one group of human ships in an attack on a Zephyrian supply vessel. Her ship, the Defiant, was much smaller than the alien ship, but it was faster and harder to hit. While the alien ship tried to turn its massive weapons toward her, Elena's team attacked the supply ship's engines and weapon systems. "Target their weak points," Elena commanded over the radio. "Don't try to match their firepower. Just make them unable to fight." The human tactics were unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever faced. Instead of the honor-bound combat they were used to, humans fought like wild animals. They targeted supply lines, attacked damaged ships, and used every dirty trick they could think of. But the most disturbing thing for the Zephyrians was what happened when they tried to use their telepathic abilities to confuse or control the human pilots. The mental attacks that had worked on dozens of other species simply bounced off human minds like water off stone. "Sir," the telepathic officer reported to Zekthan, "I cannot penetrate their mental defenses. It's like trying to push through solid rock. Try harder." "I am trying, sir. But their minds are unlike anything we've encountered. They seem to naturally resist all forms of mental influence." As the battle continued, more human ships appeared from hidden locations throughout the solar system. They didn't come all at once, which would have allowed the Zephyrians to concentrate their fire. Instead, they arrived in small groups, constantly harassing the alien fleet and preventing them from forming an effective attack plan. Elena's voice came over the communication system again. "You're probably wondering how many ships we have. The answer is more than you brought. While you were getting permission from your Galactic Council to destroy us, we were building. While you were traveling here, we were preparing. While you were planning our extermination, we were learning how to kill you." Zekthan felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Doubt. His fleet had come here, expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they were facing an enemy that seemed to know exactly how to fight them. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 3 ships and have 7 more with major damage. The humans have lost. We're not sure. Their ships are so small that when they're destroyed, we can't always tell if they were crewed or if they were unmanned drones." That was another disturbing discovery. Many of the human ships appeared to be operated by artificial intelligence, rather than living pilots. The humans were willing to risk their own lives in battle, but they were also smart enough to use machines when possible. As the battle raged across the solar system, Elena Vasquez coordinated her forces from a hidden command center on one of Earth's moons. She watched the tactical displays and smiled grimly. The plan was working exactly as they had hoped. "Phase 1 complete," she reported to Earth Command. "The Zephyrians are scattered and confused. Their formation tactics don't work against our hit-and-run attacks. Moving to Phase 2. Phase 2 involved something the aliens had never seen before: Human ships that appeared to be retreating suddenly turned and attacked with kamikaze runs. The Zephyrians, trained in honorable combat, couldn't understand an enemy that was willing to destroy their own ships to damage the enemy. By the end of the first day of battle, Commander Zekthon realized that his quick extermination mission had become something much more complicated. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were fighting smart, using tactics that his empire had never encountered before. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements. These humans are not what we expected." But, as his communication officer tried to send the message, he discovered another unpleasant surprise. The humans had somehow jammed their long-range communications. The Zephyrian fleet was cut off from their empire, alone in a star system full of enemies who seemed to know exactly how to hurt them. Elena's final transmission of the day was simple. "Welcome to Earth, Commander. We hope you enjoy your stay, because you're never leaving." Admiral Rick Hayes stood in the command center of the hidden human base on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Around him, dozens of screens showed star maps with red dots marking every known Zephyrian position throughout the galaxy. What had started as Earth's desperate defense had become something much larger and more dangerous. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "we've just received confirmation from Strike Team 7. The Zephyrian supply base at Kepler 442 has been completely destroyed." Rick nodded without showing emotion, but inside he felt grim satisfaction. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrians first attacked Earth. In that time, humanity had gone from defending their home system to launching attacks across dozens of star systems. The aliens had no idea what they had started. "What about the civilian evacuations?" Rick asked. "All human colonies have been successfully relocated to hidden bases. The Zephyrians are still looking for our main population centers, but they're finding empty space stations and abandoned settlements." This had been humanity's first and most important strategy. Instead of trying to defend fixed locations, they had evacuated everyone to secret bases hidden throughout the galaxy. It was a massive operation that had required months of planning and incredible sacrifice, but it worked. The Zephyrians couldn't destroy humanity because they couldn't find most of humanity. On another screen, Rick watched a live feed from Captain Sandy Miller's stealth ship as it approached a Zephyrian convoy. Sandy was one of humanity's best pilots, a former test pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Her ship, the Ghost Rider, was equipped with the latest human technology, including cloaking systems reverse-engineered from captured alien equipment. "Ghost Rider to base," Sandy's voice came through the speakers. "I've got eyes on the convoy. 3 heavy cruisers and 5 supply ships, just like intelligence said." "Copy, Ghost Rider. You are cleared for the mission." Rick watched as Sandy's ship approached the alien convoy completely unseen. The Zephyrians had powerful sensors, but human engineers had found ways to fool them. The attack came without warning. Sandy's ship fired specially designed missiles that punched through the alien shields and destroyed 2 supply ships before the convoy even knew they were under attack. But Sandy didn't stick around to fight a full battle. As soon as her missiles hit their targets, she activated her faster-than-light drive and disappeared, leaving the Zephyrians confused and angry. By the time they figured out what had happened, she was already dozens of light years away. This was the new human way of war. Hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before the enemy could respond. Never fight fair, never give the enemy a chance to use their superior numbers and firepower. In another part of the galaxy, Dr. Nina Patel worked in a different kind of warfare center. Nina was in charge of humanity's psychological warfare division, and her weapons were information and fear rather than missiles and energy beams. The intercepts from the Zephyrian command network are very interesting, Nina reported to Admiral Hayes via secure communication. Their officers are starting to question whether this campaign was a good idea. Morale is dropping throughout their fleet. Nina's team had learned to hack into Zephyrian communication networks and intercept their messages. What they found was an enemy that was becoming more frightened and confused with each passing week. The Zephyrians had expected a quick victory, but instead they found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't catch or defeat. "What's our next move?" Rick asked. "We're going to help their doubts grow," Nina replied with a smile. "We're going to start broadcasting their own intercepted messages to other alien species. Let the galaxy hear how the mighty Zephyrian Empire is being beaten by a primitive species." This psychological warfare was perhaps even more effective than the physical attacks. The Zephyrian Empire had built its reputation on being unbeatable. When word spread that humans were not only fighting back but winning, other species began to question Zephyrian power. The Quillic Trade Confederation was the first to break their agreements with the Zephyrians. Counselor Vexni sent a secret message to human representatives offering to share intelligence about Zephyrian military movements in exchange for protection from human raids. "The humans offer us something the Zephyrians never did," Vexni explained to his fellow Quillic leaders. "They offer us a choice: deal with them peacefully or face their ships in battle, but they don't demand that we bow down to them." On the peaceful world of Eldara, old Counselor Thane watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy with a mixture of sadness and understanding. He had tried to warn the Galactic Council, but they hadn't listened. Now the consequences were spreading like wildfire. "How many star systems have reported human activity?" he asked his aide. 17 confirmed, sir. But the reports are getting stranger. These humans don't seem interested in conquering worlds. They appear to be focused entirely on destroying Zephyrian military assets. Thane nodded slowly. "They're not conquerors. They're exterminators. The Zephyrians threatened to wipe out humanity, so now humanity is returning the favor." The most disturbing reports came from Vorman intelligence analysts. The highly intelligent Vormans had been studying human tactics and reached a conclusion that frightened them. "The humans are learning and adapting at a rate we've never seen before," reported Chief Analyst Kethvor to the Vorman Council. "Every time the Zephyrians develop a counter to human tactics, the humans develop new tactics within days. It's as if their entire species is designed for warfare." But the Vormans had discovered something even more concerning. The humans are not just fighting the Zephyrians. They're studying every species in the galaxy. They're gathering intelligence on all of us, learning our weaknesses and capabilities. Meanwhile, back in human space, the war machine that Earth had become was producing new ships and weapons at an incredible pace. Captain Bobby Chen commanded one of the newest human vessels, the Retribution, which was built entirely with hybrid human-alien technology. "The new ships are incredible," Bobby reported to Admiral Hayes. "Faster than anything the Zephyrians have, better armed and completely immune to their telepathic attacks. We're not just matching them anymore. We're surpassing them. The human fleet was growing larger and more sophisticated every month, but more importantly, human tactics were evolving in ways that confused and terrified their enemies. Humans didn't follow the traditional rules of galactic warfare. They targeted civilian supply lines, they used captured alien technology against its creators, and they showed a disturbing willingness to sacrifice their own people for strategic advantage. Captain Lucy Barnes led a mission that perfectly showed the new human approach to warfare. Her target was a Zephyrian research station that was developing new weapons to use against humans. Instead of attacking the station directly, Lucy's team captured a Zephyrian supply ship and used it to approach the research station. When the research station opened its docking bay to receive what they thought were supplies, Lucy's Marines poured out and captured the entire facility in less than an hour. The humans didn't just destroy the research station. They stole all the research data and took the Zephyrian scientist prisoner. The intelligence we gathered from this operation is invaluable, Lucy reported. We now know the locations of 17 more Zephyrian facilities, and we have detailed information about their new weapon development programs. But perhaps the most important development was happening in the Galactic Council chambers. Emergency. Sessions were being called almost daily as reports of human activity spread throughout civilized space. The humans have made contact with the Neutral Worlds Alliance, reported a frightened delegate. They're offering military protection in exchange for basing rights and intelligence sharing. 3 more species have broken their trade agreements. With the Zephyrians, added another delegate. They say they're afraid of becoming targets of human raids. Councillor Thane stood up slowly. The ancient Eldari leader looked older and more tired than ever. I told you this would happen. I warned you that attacking humanity was a mistake. Now we face a species that has decided the galaxy is too dangerous a place to share with anyone who threatens them. What are you saying? Demanded the hegemony delegate. I'm saying, Thane replied sadly, that the humans aren't just fighting to survive anymore. They're fighting to make sure that no species will ever be able to threaten them again. And based on what we've seen so far, they might actually succeed. As reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy, one thing became clear to everyone. Humanity was no longer the victim in this war. They had become something far more dangerous. They had become hunters, and the Zephyrian Empire was their prey. War Master Zeklon stood in the command center of the Zephyrian Empire's greatest fortress, watching holographic displays that showed the systematic destruction of his civilization. The proud warrior who had once commanded the respect of 50 star systems now looked tired and desperate. His dark green scales had lost their shine, and his yellow eyes no longer burned with confidence. Report, he ordered his intelligence chief, though he dreaded what he was about to hear. War Master, we have lost contact with the Outer Rim colonies. The last transmission from Sector 7 reported human ships attacking civilian transports. That was 3 days ago. Zeklon closed his eyes. Civilian transports. The humans had crossed a line that no civilized species was supposed to cross. In all, the wars the Zephyrian Empire had fought, they had always followed the ancient codes of honor. Military targets only. Protect the innocent. Fight with dignity. But humans had no such codes. What about our request for peace negotiations? Zeklon asked, though he already knew the answer from his aide's expression. The humans responded, sir. They sent us coordinates to a system where they said they would meet our diplomats. And when our diplomatic ship arrived, they found wreckage from the convoy that attacked Earth 8 months ago. The human message was simple. This is our answer to your request for peace. Across the galaxy, Colonel Ben Parker led a team of human special forces on a mission that would have horrified any civilized species. Ben was a former Marine who had volunteered for the darkest missions humanity had to offer. His target was not a military base or a weapons facility. It was a Zephyrian civilian colony. Remember, Ben told his team as their stealth ship approached the planet. We're not here to kill everyone. We're here to send a message. Make it count. The colony of Zeftar had been a peaceful farming world for 300 years. Its inhabitants grew food for other worlds in the Empire and had never seen war. When human ships appeared in their sky, the colonists had no idea what was happening. Ben's team struck the colony's communication center first, cutting them off from the rest of the Empire. Then they hit the power stations, plunging the major cities into darkness. Finally, they targeted the government buildings, capturing the planetary governor and broadcasting a message to the terrified population. "People of Zeftar," Ben announced, over the colony's emergency broadcast system, "your empire declared war on humanity. Your leaders called us primitive and decided we had no right to exist. Now, you will learn what happens when you threaten the human species." The humans didn't massacre the colonists, but they did something that was perhaps worse for Zephyrian morale. They loaded the entire planetary government onto their ships and took them away. The colony was left leaderless, defenseless, and completely cut off from the Empire. Within hours, refugee ships began fleeing the planet. Word of the human attack spread through Zephyrian space like wildfire. The mighty empire that had conquered dozens of worlds couldn't protect its own people from a species they had called primitive. Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, War Master Zeklon received reports of similar attacks throughout the Empire. The humans weren't just targeting military assets anymore. They were systematically destroying Zephyrian society itself. "They're using our own tactics against us," his military advisor reported. "But they're taking them further than we ever did. When we conquered worlds, we at least left governments in place. The humans are removing all traces of Zephyrian authority." "How is this possible?" Zeklon demanded. "They were primitives. Their technology was centuries behind ours." His science advisor, a younger Zephyrian named Vectal, stepped forward nervously. "War Master, we've been studying the wreckage from human ships. Their technology has evolved at an impossible rate. In less than a year, they've advanced from barely achieving faster-than-light travel to building ships that are superior to ours in every way. That's impossible. No species evolves that quickly." "That's what we thought, sir. But humans appear to be different from any species we've encountered. They don't just adapt to threats, they learn from them and become stronger." Commander Sophie Wright of the human vessel. Vengeance intercepted another Zephyrian surrender request as her ship patrolled the outer edges of former Zephyrian space. Sophie had been a diplomat before the war, but months of fighting had changed her into something harder and more ruthless. The Zephyrian commander on the screen looked desperate. "Please, we surrender. Our weapons are powered down. We have civilian refugees aboard. Show mercy." Sophie looked at the alien commander with cold eyes. "Mercy? Did you show mercy when you attacked the New Horizons? Did your empire show mercy when you planned to exterminate every human in the galaxy? That was a mistake. We realize now that—" "No," Sophie interrupted. "It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. You chose to see us as inferior. You chose to attack us. Now live with the consequences of your choices." Sophie's response was not to accept the surrender, but to send coordinates to 3 more human fleets. Within hours, the Zephyrian ship was surrounded by vessels that could have destroyed it instantly. But the humans didn't destroy it. Instead, they escorted it to a processing center where the Zephyrian crew would be questioned, their ships studied, and their refugees relocated to camps. The human approach to prisoners was efficient and terrifying. They didn't torture or kill their captives, but they did study them. Every Zephyrian who fell into human hands was thoroughly examined, their knowledge extracted, their weaknesses cataloged. The information was then used to make human attacks even more effective. Dr. Rachel Kim, who had taken over alien technology, research from her brother Marcus, made a discovery that changed everything. Admiral Hayes, she reported via secure communication, "We've learned something important from our Zephyrian prisoners. Their empire isn't just militaristic. It's completely dependent on the idea that they're superior to other species." "What do you mean?" "Their entire society is built on the belief that they're the strongest species in the galaxy. When other species see them losing to humans, it doesn't just hurt their military, it destroys the foundation of their civilization." This discovery led to a new phase of human strategy. Instead of just fighting the Zephyrians, humans began broadcasting evidence of their victories to every species in the galaxy. Videos of Zephyrian ships being destroyed, recordings of Zephyrian commanders begging for mercy, proof that the mighty empire was being systematically dismantled by a species they had called primitive. The psychological impact was devastating. Species that had feared the Zephyrians for centuries began to see them as weak and vulnerable. Trade relationships collapsed. Allied worlds declared independence. The empire that had taken centuries to build began falling apart in months. Captain Terry Johnson commanded a human fleet that specialized in what the military called demonstration attacks. Terry's job was not just to destroy Zephyrian targets, but to do it in ways that would be seen by as many other species as possible. "Target acquired," Terry announced as his fleet approached a major Zephyrian trade hub. "Broadcasting on all frequencies. Let's make sure everyone in this sector can watch this." The attack was swift and brutal. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, destroyed the Zephyrian defenses, and captured the entire facility in less than 2 hours. But the most important part wasn't the military victory. It was the message Terry broadcast afterward. "This is Captain Terry Johnson of the Human Defense Force," he announced to the galaxy. "The Zephyrian Empire told you they were invincible. They told you that primitive species like humans could never threaten advanced civilizations. As you can see, they were wrong. Any species that threatens humanity will meet the same fate. But species that want to live in peace with us will find us to be fair and reasonable neighbors." Back in the Zephyrian Command Center, War Master Zeklon watched the broadcast with growing horror. The humans weren't just defeating his empire, they were replacing it. Species that had once sought Zephyrian protection were now seeking human protection instead. "Sir," his aide reported quietly, "we've received word from the Galactic Council. They're calling for an emergency session to discuss our situation." Zeklon knew what that meant. The Galactic Council was going to abandon the Zephyrian Empire to save themselves. The same council that had supported their attack on humanity was now preparing to throw them away like a broken tool. "How long can we hold our core systems?" he asked his military advisor. The advisor looked at his reports with despair. "At current rates of loss, perhaps 3 months. The humans have more ships now than we do, and their technology is advancing faster than we can adapt to it." Zeklon realized that his empire was doomed. The species they had dismissed as primitive had become apex predators, and the Zephyrians were their prey. The greatest military force in the galaxy had been outfought, outthought, and systematically destroyed by beings they had refused to take seriously. "Send a message to all remaining Zephyrian commanders," he ordered finally. "Tell them to prepare for the final phase. If we're going to fall, we'll make the humans pay for every system they take." But even as he gave the order, Zeklon knew it was hopeless. The humans had already won. The only question now was how long it would take them to finish what the Zephyrians had started. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so crowded or so frightened. Representatives from over 300 species packed into emergency session, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and panicked discussions. Above them, the holographic display that usually showed the peaceful worlds of the galaxy now displayed a very different picture, red zones marking former Zephyrian territory that was now under human control or completely abandoned. Counselor Thane of the Eldari looked older than his thousands of years as he called for order. The ancient being who had tried to warn the Council about humanity now found himself in the terrible position of saying, "I told you so," to an entire galaxy. "The emergency session will come to order," Thane announced, his voice carrying over the frightened chatter. "We are here to discuss the situation that has developed following the Zephyrian attack on the human homeworld 17 months ago." In the center of the hall, a massive holographic display showed the current state of what had once been the Zephyrian Empire. 17 star systems were marked in red, indicating complete human control. Another 32 systems were marked in yellow, showing areas where human forces were active, but Zephyrian resistance continued. Only 8 systems remained green, representing the last strongholds of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful military force. "The numbers speak for themselves," continued Thane. "In less than 2 years, humanity has gone from a single world with primitive technology to controlling more space than most established civilizations. But the numbers only tell part of the story." Counselor Yithra of the Vormans stood up slowly. The highly intelligent Vormans had been studying humanity since the crisis began, and their findings were disturbing. "Our analysis indicates that humanity is not simply conquering former Zephyrian territory. They are systematically reshaping it. Human-controlled systems are being connected by the most advanced communication and transportation networks we have ever observed." "What does that mean for the rest of us?" asked Counselor Vexney of the Quillic, though his people had already made their choice months ago by allying with humanity. "It means," replied Yithra, "that humanity is not behaving like any conquering species in recorded history. They are not simply taking territory. They are building an empire designed to never be threatened again." On the screens around the hall, refugee reports played from species that had fled human-controlled space. But these reports were confusing and contradictory. Some refugees spoke of human brutality and ruthless efficiency. Others described fair treatment and protection from human forces. The pattern was clear. Species that had supported the Zephyrians faced human wrath, while those that remained neutral or cooperated were treated well. "The humans have contacted us directly," announced the representative from the Neutral Worlds Alliance. "They have offered us protection and trade agreements, but they have also made it clear that neutrality may not be an option much longer." This was the heart of the galaxy's new nightmare. Humanity was not content to simply defeat the Zephyrians. They were offering every species a choice: join them or potentially face them. It was diplomacy backed by the most effective military force the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Terry Johnson appeared on the main screen via quantum communication from his flagship somewhere in former Zephyrian space. Terry had become humanity's unofficial ambassador to the galaxy, though his diplomatic credentials came from commanding one of the most powerful fleets in human space. "Honored council members," Terry began, his voice respectful but firm. "I bring greetings from the Human Defense Administration and President Brooks. We appreciate this opportunity to address your concerns about recent events in this sector." "Captain Johnson," Thane said carefully, The Galactic Council is concerned about the rapid expansion of human territory and the aggressive nature of your species' response to the Zephyrian attack. Terry smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Counselor Thane, with respect, this council had the opportunity to prevent this crisis. When the Zephyrians asked for permission to exterminate humanity, you gave it to them. When we asked for help, you ignored us. Now you're concerned about our response? The hall fell silent. The accusation was direct and undeniable. The Galactic Council had sided with the Zephyrians, and now they faced the consequences. What do humans want from the galaxy? Asked the representative from the core worlds, a group of ancient civilizations that had remained neutral in most conflicts. That's simple, Terry replied. We want to make sure that no species ever again decides that humanity should be exterminated. We want a galaxy where disputes are settled through negotiation rather than genocide, and we want other species to understand that threatening human civilians will result in the complete destruction of whoever makes that threat. Admiral Grace Kim materialized as a second hologram next to Terry. Grace commanded the largest human fleet, and her presence at this diplomatic meeting sent a clear message about humanity's priorities. The Galactic Council needs to understand something, Grace said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. Humanity tried peaceful exploration. We sent one small ship to make friends with our neighbors. The response was an attempt to wipe out our entire species. We will not make that mistake again. Are you threatening the Galactic Council? Demanded the representative from the hegemony worlds, though his voice shook as he spoke. No, Grace replied calmly. We're explaining reality. The old balance of power in this galaxy is gone. The Zephyrian Empire built their strength on the fear of other species. They convinced everyone that they were unbeatable. We proved that wrong. Now every species in the galaxy has to decide what comes next. The holographic displays around the hall showed the evidence of human capabilities, ships that were faster and more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen before, weapons that could punch through defenses that had protected civilizations for centuries. Most disturbing of all, evidence that human technology was still advancing at an impossible rate. Our analysis indicates that human technological development has not slowed, reported Yithra. If anything, it is accelerating. At current rates, within 5 years, humanity will possess technology that surpasses our most advanced civilizations by centuries. How is that possible? Asked a delegate from the Outer Rim territories. Terry answered, because humans don't just adapt to threats, Counselor. We learn from them, we improve on them, and we make sure they never threaten us again. Every Zephyrian ship we captured taught us something new. Every battle we fought made us stronger. Every species that shares technology with us helps us grow. This was the key to humanity's rapid advancement. They didn't just steal alien technology, they improved on it, combined it with human innovations, and shared the results throughout their growing alliance. Species that cooperated with humanity found themselves with access to technology they could never have developed alone. We've received reports of human forces offering protection to species threatened by raiders and pirates, said the representative from the frontier worlds. Is this true? It is, Grace confirmed. Humanity believes in protecting civilians, regardless of species. We've found that many problems in this galaxy come from the strong preying on the weak. We're changing that. The delegates looked at each other nervously. The humans were offering protection, but everyone understood the cost. Species under human protection would become part of humanity's growing sphere of influence. Counselor Thane stood up slowly. Captain Johnson, Admiral Kim, what are humanity's intentions for the future? Do you plan to continue expanding? Do you seek to control the entire galaxy? Terry and Grace looked at each other before Terry answered. Counselor, we plan to expand until we're safe. Until no species can threaten human civilians. Until disputes are settled by negotiation instead of warfare. If that means controlling the entire galaxy, then that's what we'll do. And what about species that don't want to be part of your sphere of influence? Grace answered this time. They're free to remain independent, as long as they don't threaten us or our allies. But they should understand that neutrality might not be an option if another crisis develops. The galaxy has shown us that peaceful species can be exterminated by aggressive ones. We won't let that happen again. As the session continued, it became clear that the galaxy faced a choice that no one had wanted to make. The old system of independent civilizations balanced against each other was ending. In its place, humanity was offering a new system based on their protection and their rules. The Council will need time to consider these developments, Thane said finally. Of course, Terry replied. But don't take too long. Other species are making their choices every day. The ones that choose to work with us are finding the benefits significant. The ones that choose to work against us. He gestured to the holographic display showing the destroyed Zephyrian Empire. As the human representatives signed off, the Galactic Council was left to face a new reality. The species they had dismissed as primitive had become the dominant power in their region of the galaxy. And based on everything they had seen, humanity was just getting started. The Age of Human. Expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.